Persona 5 is not only one of the greatest JRPGs of the last generation, it is one of the greatest games ever made, period. This has had many fans hoping for a successor to this masterpiece. However, Atlus isn't really known for releasing direct sequels. Rather, they prefer to take the spin-off route and create things such as rhythm or fighting games with their established characters. Persona 5 Strikers released in Japan on February 20th, 2020. The North American release date, however, is scheduled for about a week and a half from now on February 23rd, 2021. P5 Strikers instantly caught my attention with how much I loved the original game, and the more I looked into it, the more I was fascinated. Though on the surface, Strikers looks like your typical Warriors hack and slash spin-off, there are a lot of elements that lead me towards deeming this game a direct sequel. My name is the Ashen Dragoon, and here on this channel I love to discuss upcoming games and news, as well as do deep dive analysis videos on the games I love. And specifically I have a focus on RPGs, so if you like what you see here today, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon to get notified every time I upload. I did want to put one disclaimer out there, and that is that the game has not released yet in North America, so I'm basing most of my discussion around the Japanese edition of the game, as well as some of the things I've seen from various media outlets and YouTubers. But since this isn't a review, I don't think that should be too big of a deal. I want to first start off by presenting the argument for Strikers being a spin-off game, and I think it's a pretty one-dimensional argument with only one real point to make, but I do believe that it is a fairly valid point and worth discussion. Persona 5 Strikers is a Musou or Warrior style game. This just screams spin-off to most gamers, and when I think of Warriors games, I think of spin-offs like Hyrule Warriors or Fire Emblem Warriors. The Warriors outings for these franchises have very little in common with their predecessors in terms of gameplay. The same holds true for Strikers. The fast-paced action combat taking on wave after wave of enemy is a far cry from the turn-based system of the original, no matter how snappy and responsive it was. When I first heard that Strikers was going to be a Warrior-style game, I was a little disappointed, as I assumed that everything that made the original so great would be thrown out the door. Don't get me wrong, I don't think the Dynasty Warrior games are terrible by any means, I just think they wear thin rather quickly and do very little to give purpose to the fairly simple hack and slash combat, which is pretty much button mashing. After digging deeper into Strikers, I realized that while the gameplay may be much different than before, almost everything else appears to be a love letter to the original. The story picks up a short while after the end of Persona 5, and Joker has come back to Tokyo for the summer to go on a camping trip with all the friends that he's made. The story takes all of our favorite characters back into the metaverse as they re-establish the Phantom Thieves while changing hearts. If I didn't know any better and somebody told me this synopsis, I would think that I was still playing the original game. I mean, this is right up Persona 5's alley, and it is definitely a spiritual successor if it's not a direct sequel. And this is pretty atypical for a spin-off game. We usually don't see this type of continuity with story. Persona spin-offs like Persona 4 Arena and Persona 5 Dancing in Starlight have very little to do with the original games they are based on, and in fact, they barely have any story at all. Other franchises that have Warrior spin-off games often take place in an alternate timeline or in their own isolated dimension or universe, and that's why I think it's so refreshing to see Strikers does take place essentially right after Persona 5. Furthermore, although the switch to the action combat system was a large departure, other elements and mechanics from the original were able to be implemented into Strikers in a way that make it appear to be much more familiar. The first thing was the pure style. They were able to translate the feeling from the original so well and maintain its distinct aesthetic, even though it would have been easy to sacrifice some of it and go with a more traditional Warriors art style. The menus, characters, environments, and portraits are still oozing with flair, and almost all of them have been improved upon from the original, making it feel like a real iteration. Other elements like exploring Tokyo or spending time with confidants or friends are still present in the game, which were major parts of the addicting gameplay loop from Persona 5. I think to be fair though, I should note that I don't believe the calendar system or the social bond / rank system are in Strikers, and if they are, they have been taken to a relatively smaller role in this outing, so that does make it feel a little more spin-off like. While I did spend some time earlier telling you guys about the differences in gameplay and how they were quite drastic, I do think there are actually a few ways that it was made to look and feel familiar. Parties are made up of groups of 4 just like in the original game, and many of the skirmishes have familiar foes from P5 or just the Persona series in general. Enemies still have weaknesses and can be staggered as before, and all-out attacks can be unleashed if all enemies are staggered. Obviously, the spells, abilities, and personas you would expect to see are all present as well. While these may be little touches, I do think they add up and tie Strikers to Persona 5 and keep it grounded, so to speak. At the end of the day, whether this is a sequel or a spin-off comes down to personal opinion. How faithful does a game need to be to its predecessor to be dubbed a sequel? Many people will think the switch over to a real-time combat system immediately makes this game a spin-off, and they are completely entitled to that opinion. I think I've come to the conclusion, however, that the fact that the story is almost a direct continuation, and how the feel and vibe of the game has been maintained so well that Persona 5 Strikers is a sequel, but that is just my personal opinion. What really solidified it for me was seeing all of the Phantom Thieves together in the real world and interacting just like the good old days, and it really reminded me of why I fell in love with Persona 5. But I want to know what you guys think. Do you think Persona 5 Strikers will be more of a spin-off or a sequel? And what makes a game a sequel versus a spin-off in your eyes? And finally, are you excited for the release of Persona 5 Strikers? Let me know the answer to all those questions down in the comments below. If you did like the video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon to get notified every time that I upload. Here on this channel, I love to discuss gaming news and upcoming releases, specifically with a focus on RPGs, as well as do some in-depth analysis videos on games that I really love. Until the next one, thanks for stopping by.